Somewhere along the way, I learned that relying on myself felt safer, more predictable, and more in control. And if I'm being really honest, I think it started with school group projects. You know the ones. 4 people get randomly assigned to a project, and very quickly it becomes clear that not everyone in the group has the same investment in the outcome. And so you do what any driven, conscientious person does. You pick up the slack. You carry the stress, and you tell yourself it's just easier this way. Okay, so what happens after enough of those experiences? Hi there, I'm Wendy Rimmelspacher, and welcome to the podcast show, Dim to Daring. Do you feel like there's something bigger waiting for you, but you're not sure how to make it happen? You're in the right place. I'm here to bring you inspiring stories, powerful insights, and practical strategies to help you reignite your spark, realign with your purpose, and take those bold steps towards the life you were meant to live. Let's dive in, because you're not finished yet. You're just getting started. Have you ever noticed how high-achieving women often wear independence like a badge of honor? There's this quiet inner voice that says things like, I'll just do it myself, or it's easier if I handle it, or maybe it's, I don't want to burden anyone. And maybe your version sounds like, I know I'll get it done right and quicker if I just do it myself. If any of that sounds familiar, you are in very good company, and you're in exactly the right place today. Because recently, a golf tournament reminded me of something I didn't even realize I still needed to learn. And seriously, it had very little to do with golf and everything to do with how we perpetuate our own isolation. Welcome back to Dim to Daring, the podcast for women who know they are meant for more. Women who are done shrinking, done dimming, and ready to step more fully into who they're becoming. And if you're new here, I'm your host, Wendy Rimmelspacher. Today, I'm talking about something that sounds simple on the surface, but has the power to genuinely change your confidence, your pace of growth, your happiness, and your success. I'm talking about your inner circle, and more specifically, why so many capable, driven women end up unintentionally building lives where the only person they truly trust is themselves. I've always preferred working alone, and I want to be clear. It's not because I dislike people, and it's not because I can't collaborate. It's because somewhere along the way, I learned that relying on myself felt safer, more predictable, and more in control. And if I'm being really honest, I think it started with school group projects. You know the ones. 4 people get randomly assigned to a project, and very quickly it becomes clear that not everyone in the group has the same investment in the outcome. And that's not a judgment. People have different priorities, different pressures, different skills, and different things going on in their lives. But when you're the person lying awake the night before it's due, stressed about the grade because your GPA actually matters deeply to you, that difference in investment feels very personal. And so you do what any driven, conscientious person does. You pick up the slack. You carry the stress, and you tell yourself it's just easier this way. Okay, so what happens after enough of those experiences? You quietly absorb a belief that feels completely logical, given the evidence, that when something truly matters to you, it's safer and simpler to just handle it yourself rather than risk being let down by someone whose priorities don't match your own. If I want it done right, and if I want the outcome to reflect what I actually care about, I should just do it myself. And here's the tricky part. That belief does work. It gets results, it earns praise, and it feels efficient. So you keep reinforcing it year after year until one day you look up and realize that self-reliance has quietly crossed a line and become self-isolation. Self-reliance is a virtue, until it becomes a ceiling. And I think a lot of women listening today know exactly what I mean, even if you've never quite named it that way before. So here's the story. I was invited for a second year in a row to play in a 4-person charity golf scramble. And I get excited about these kind of things. Now, if you're not a golfer, a scramble works like this. Everyone on the team takes a shot from the same place, and then the whole team plays from the best one. And you keep rotating through that way until the ball is in the hole, which means that no single person is carrying the entire weight of the game. You are genuinely in it together. I noticed something almost immediately when we stepped onto that course that day. The pressure I usually feel when I'm performing solo, that constant low-grade pressure to perform, it felt lighter actually, more like fun than pressure. And I realized it was because I wasn't alone in it. Each person on the team brought something that others didn't. One of us had a powerful drive. Another had a gift for reading the green and sinking putts. Someone had this incredible ability to keep us laughing no matter what was happening. And someone else had the kind of steady, encouraging presence that kept the whole team moving forward even when shots literally went sideways. And of course, one person came with a supply of birdie juice, just in case we scored some birdies so we could celebrate. You know, the responsible one. When we played to each other's strengths, instead of trying to cover our own weaknesses alone, something shifted. The whole experience became richer and more successful than anything one of us could have created solo. In a scramble, you play from the best shot. Imagine if we did that in life. Instead of always starting from our worst moments, we played from each other's best ones. And at the end, nobody asked who hit the winning shot. We just celebrated that score together. I want to talk about something that doesn't get highlighted very often, and that's the quiet exhaustion that comes from being a driven, high-achieving woman who has gotten very good at doing everything herself. These are the women everyone relies on, the ones who hold things together at work, at home, in their friendships, and in their communities. The ones who get described as strong, and who have learned to wear that as a compliment, even when underneath it, they're running on fumes. The problem is that strength can become armor. And armor, no matter how beautifully crafted it is, eventually gets heavy. It keeps things out that you actually need to let in. Incompetence can be the loneliest armor of all. Sometimes the most courageous thing a strong woman can do is let people in, not because she's weak, but because human beings were never designed to thrive in isolation. You are wired for connection, girlfriend, and when you override that wiring in the name of independence, you pay a cost that often isn't readily recognized. Some women are carrying a level of emotional exhaustion, not because life is genuinely too hard, but because they have never given themselves permission to stop carrying everything alone. Here's something I've come to believe deeply, both from my own career experiences and from working with women as a coach. Your inner circle either expands you or exhausts you. There isn't really a neutral option. Your inner circle isn't just a nice to have type of thing. It's literally the environment in which your growth either thrives or struggles. The conversations you have, the standards that get normalized, the possibilities that feel available to you, all of it is shaped by who you keep closest. This isn't about being selective for the sake of being exclusive. It's about being intentional because your becoming deserves that kind of protection. It's like the right soil to thrive, to grow. The right people in your life will remind you of who you are when you've temporarily forgotten. They'll encourage you to grow even when growth feels uncomfortable. They'll normalize courage, speak possibility into your life, and celebrate your evolution without making it about themselves. They'll help you think bigger than you would on your own, and they'll hold space for you when life gets heavy. You don't need more friends. You need the right women who see you, challenge you, and inspire you to grow. And I want to say something that might feel a little uncomfortable. The people who belong in your inner circle are the ones who don't compete with your shine. Because some women stay stuck, not because they lack talent or ambition, but because they've surrounded themselves with people who feel threatened by growth rather than inspired by it. And that's not a judgment of anyone, but it's something worth paying great attention to. Sometimes growth gets lonely before it gets expansive. As women grow and evolve, their friendships often need to evolve too. And I know that can feel like a hard thing to admit because it can sound like you're abandoning people or deciding someone isn't good enough anymore. That's not what I mean at all. What I mean is that not every relationship is built to go every direction you're going, and that's okay. If you want to become more confident, more aligned, more energized, bolder, more at peace with who you are, you need proximity to people who are actually living that way. Because you absorb the energy, the expectations, and the possibilities of the people you spend the most time with. You need to surround yourself with women who genuinely clap when you win. Women who lovingly challenge your excuses rather than letting you hide behind them. And women who remind you that your next chapter is still absolutely available to you, no matter where you're starting from and no matter your age. Some friendships keep you comfortable. Others keep you honest. And you need both. But don't confuse them. The people who celebrate your wins matter deeply. But the people who stay present when you're mid-transformation, when you're messy and uncertain and still becoming, those are rare. Keep them close. Now, I want to be clear about something because I think this is where women sometimes get tripped up. Building an intentional inner circle doesn't mean closing the door on everyone else. Your world should still be wide and warm and full of different kinds of people. Think of it like this. Your inner circle is small by design. These are the women who are in the room for the real conversations, the ones who know what you're actually working through and who you trust completely. But your periphery, that matters too. The colleague who always makes you laugh, the neighbor you love catching up with, the old friend you don't talk to every week but who always picks right back up. Those relationships add richness and joy and perspective to your life in ways your inner circle simply can't cover alone. The goal isn't a smaller life, it's a more intentional one, knowing which relationships you're investing deeply in and which ones you're simply enjoying for what they beautifully are. Now, here's the part that a lot of women want to skip over, and I completely understand why, because it's the uncomfortable part. True connections requires vulnerability. It requires letting people actually see you. And I'm not talking about that polished, capable, has it all together version you've practiced showing the world, but I'm talking about the real you. The woman who is evolving and questioning and stretching towards something bigger, who feels uncertain sometimes and scared sometimes and proud sometimes, all in the same afternoon. The version of you that has it all together doesn't need a community, but the real you does. And here's the thing that I find genuinely beautiful about this. That kind of honesty is almost always what creates the deepest, most lasting relationships. It's not perfection. You're not performing. It's the real thing. Letting someone see your unfinished edges isn't oversharing. It's an invitation for real connection. And when you show up authentically, you give the people around you permission to do the same. And that's where real community is born. I want to talk about something I've noticed in high-achieving women. And if I'm being completely transparent, something I've had to work on myself. We are, most of us, excellent givers. We show up for people. We support, we encourage, we remember the details that matter, we hold space, we celebrate others with our whole hearts. That part comes naturally. But receiving, that's where many of us go rigid. We deflect compliments, wave off help, say, "I'm fine," when we're absolutely not, and then quietly wonder why we feel so unsupported, never quite connecting the dots to the fact that we haven't actually let anyone in far enough to try. Giving support is easy for high achievers. Receiving it, that's the real practice. So today, I want to ask you honestly, where have you been quietly closing the door on support? Where have you been waving people off because it felt easier or safer or more independent than letting them show up for you? A circle only works when it flows both ways, giving and receiving, holding and being held. I want to offer you a simple exercise you can do right now, even while you're listening. I want you to think about the last 3 people you reached out to when something went wrong, when you were struggling, scared, or overwhelmed. Now think about the last 3 people who reached out to you in a similar moment. Is there any overlap between those 2 lists? If there is, that overlap is your real inner circle. And if the list feels thin, or if you're realizing that you rarely reach out at all because you've gotten so accustomed to handling things alone, that's not a reason to feel bad. That's an invitation. It's information, and it's your starting point. Before we close this episode out today, I want to leave you with some questions worth sitting with. You don't have to answer them all right now, but I encourage you to carry them with you. Think about who energizes you after you spend time with them. Who makes you feel genuinely safe to grow, to stumble, to be uncertain? Who celebrates not just your wins, but the person you're evolving into? Where in your life are you still trying to go it alone, even when you don't have to? What support have you been quietly resisting, and what might it cost you to keep doing that? And maybe the most important question of all, who do I want to become, and are the people around me helping me become her? At the end of that golf tournament, our final score honestly mattered less to me than I expected it to. What stayed with me was the laughter, the shared moments when someone hit a shot none of us expected, the way we celebrated together and rallied together, and how we thoroughly enjoyed the afternoon with each other. That camaraderie is something you simply cannot manufacture alone. And it reminded me of something I think we all need to hear from time to time. Life was never meant to be a solo performance. Yes, your ambition matters, goals matter, your growth, hard work, and dedication absolutely matter, but so does connection. So does being known, being supported, being celebrated, and belonging to something bigger than yourself. So if you have been trying to carry everything by yourself lately, I hope this episode serves as a gentle reminder that you don't have to. The strongest women I know are not the ones who never need support. They're the ones brave enough to ask for it and receive it and build the kind of circle where support flows freely in both directions. Because you were never meant to dim yourself through isolation. You were meant to rise through connections. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. And if you're in the middle of building your next chapter right now, personally, professionally, emotionally, or spiritually, I hope today's conversation reminds you to build your inner circle intentionally. Surround yourself with the women who will support the person you are becoming, not just the person you've already been. And until next time, keep shining, keep growing, and keep moving from dim to daring. Thank you so much for joining me today on Dim to Daring. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love it if you subscribed, shared it with a friend, or left a review. It helps more women just like you discover the show. Remember, you're not finished yet, you're just getting started. Until next time, keep daring to grow and shine.